Welcome to the Lee Schools TV podcast. I'm Adam Wright. Joining us today is Adam Molloy, history teacher, North Fort Myers High School. Adam, first of all, great name.
Thank you.
Second of all, thanks for being here.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm excited and honored, also very surprised.
Yeah? Why is that?
I don't know. I saw Jim Kroll's and I knew he set the bar really high, and I was maybe expecting another kind of entertaining teacher, but I wanted to also be maybe a real teacher. So
Yeah.
good.
All right. Well, we'll see if you can raise the bar even higher.
We'll see.
All right. So you're a Golden Apple winner, 2015. So that's cool. And also, even cooler, maybe, in my opinion, perhaps, you are a University of Florida graduate.
That's right. Go Gators.
So am I. Go Gators. Did you know that? I went to UF.
I imagined when I saw you do the chomp to open up that you were a University
Well, that was just to sync the audio.
I gotcha. But yeah, no, I studied history, got my bachelor's in history from Florida, and also met my wife, which was huge.
At UF?
At UF.
Yeah, cool. How'd you meet?
We met, she was from Fort Myers, but we had never met, and summer kind of clears out, and just met her running around and asked her to go to a super regional final game, and the rest is history.
You've been together ever since?
Ever since.
Yeah. So she's from Fort Myers. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Here, born and raised here, a product of the Lee County school system. Went to Tropic Isles, Hancock Creek, Fort Myers Middle, Fort Myers High.
Dude, all right, UF. I went to Fort Myers High School as well.
Roll wave.
Is that what
I think that's what they say. But now I've taught for 12 years at North Fort Myers High. They're rivals, so let's go Red Knights.
Okay, so I also read. So you went to UF. You said you studied history at UF, and I read that you planned on going to law school. What happened with that? Yeah,
so law school. So my dad is an attorney, and my mom's a teacher. So those were automatically my two career paths. Well, actually, when I was in school, it was to be Javon Curse first, and then it was attorney or teacher. Sure. But the Javon Curse thing didn't work out.
Football
so
player.
Hot. Yeah, the football player, the freak they called him. I didn't have necessarily those talents or skills. So I wanted to try out law, and I got on a few waiting lists. And in the meantime, when I came back, my mom said you have to get a job. In order to win the thermostat war in the house when I came back from college, I said, okay, well, I'll try teaching. And I just fell in love with it. The kids, the lessons, just the whole profession. I thought it would be very sustainable, projected well in terms of how rewarding it would be. And so I said, forget the wait list. I'm going to try out the teaching thing. And so I went that route.
So what is it about history that drew you to that subject?
I think history, and I try to tell my students this all the time, and I always open it up with this: history is so fluid and debatable and arguable. And I think history for me is just that revision aspect, that challenging of a dominant assumption or narrative. And that's one of the things that gets kids, hooked. You give them an argument or a position, and you allow them to go to war with it. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things to me that drew me in about history. Also, I think from a patriotic standpoint, it just had that, to learn more about American history meant that I was, having a better understanding of who we are and where we're going, and even taking critical approaches. It always made me feel like I was, just understanding a little bit better about America.
So you teach more specifically, so three different classes?
2 classes right now.
Okay, so I have global perspectives, international history, and U.S. history.
Yes, and those were very recent classes, but U.S. history and international right now.
Okay. Which one do you prefer one over the other?
Oh, I love U.S.
Yeah,
I love U.S. history. So my focus area was 20th century civil rights history, and got a chance to learn a lot about Fort Myers, and bringing that into the classroom, seeing that local history just pop, and the kids are like, no way, 1886, 1887, even, our recent kind of exploration with the sales tax we got into in some of the presentations. We got into the history of the Lee County School District and why, Lee County was necessary and how that was funded, but the kids really get into the local stuff. So U.S. history, it's fun. The kids can connect with it, and it's pretty live.
So you say you kind of emphasize or teach heavily the 19th or 20th century civil rights.
Yeah.
So is that your favorite
that would be
part of U.S. history to teach?
That would be my specialty. Or my focus area in grad school would be the modern civil rights movement. In particular, the local history. I wrote my thesis on the history of integration in Lee County and how Lee County was integrated, which was cool to learn. And I got to interview Veronica Shoemaker and Mary Lee Mann and a lot of like key players.
Do you want to give us a quick little rundown of Lee County integration
history? So the synopsis it's available if you're ever stuck with no way to get out and nothing to do for the rest of your life. It is in the FGCU library, but there's only 2 people that have checked it out, and I'm both of those people, unfortunately. And I actually had to pay a late due because I didn't return it on time. But yeah, so the thesis is basically the efforts of the NAACP, and they file a lawsuit which becomes the Blaylock case, and Lee County is under that federal supervision until 1999. And it's really the efforts and the events surrounding that lawsuit, and the plaintiffs that wanted that wanted integration, that made integration a possibility in Lee County, which was pretty cool.
So is that the only? Do you only focus on 20th century U.S. history then?
No, when we teach, per the academic plan, we go from Civil War Reconstruction to present.
Okay.
So we hit everything. Yeah, we follow everything and try to make everything, pop a little bit for the kids.
But you put a lot of emphasis on like the women's suffrage movement in the 20s. To the Civil Rights Act of
1965,
four.
Yeah, 1964.
You're the teacher.
Voting Rights Act 65.
Voting Rights Act. Okay. That's got them mixed up. So what is you kind of talked about it a little bit more, but if you want to go into more about kind of your philosophy on your teaching style and what your goals are for your students every year.
So we can go like really macro, kind of like generic philosophy, and then we'll go like really particular. Sure. So in terms of the general philosophy, it's to make the idea of learning and being critical fun for kids. And the kids, they have got the critical part. I teach high school, and they can be critical with the best of them, but putting that into an academic way and getting that with their writing and getting that with their thinking, that's really important. But making learning and being critical really fun for them. I think is a primary goal. At the more micro level, just getting these little pieces of history to connect with kids in some way. Now, we always start out with maybe like a personal history kind of project where kids write about their own personal history, major events, big moves, things like that. And then in the end, it's a reflection that every small event and big event has put them in that exact seat in that classroom, like in my classroom. Like just like every event in our own history, in our country's history, in our world's history, has brought us to this point. So we always start off with that kind of personal to big with history. And I think kids see that that they become agents of history, which is empowering. The more that you are in control, or at least you recognize that you're an agent in history, the more you can do, and the more that you can feel, I think, that empowered to do something. Getting kids to think about a project that has local implications. We did a Battle of Fort Myers Memorial project, which they presented and actually made to the next stage of like funding. Was like, kids were like, oh, it's just like Parks and Rec, but it's real Parks and Rec. It's Parks and Rec where you could get your memorial project in Centennial Park.
So what was the project? What were they?
So they had to research the Battle of Fort Myers, which, being from Fort Myers, it's like the coolest battle in the entire Civil War. But in the bigger scope of the Civil War, it was a relatively small battle.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Battle of Fort Myers?
I can, and I would love to. So Fort Myers was a Union fort during the Civil War, and they used Fort Myers as a stage for cattle raids into the interior of Florida. So Florida was kind of like a big-time supplier of food products and agricultural products to the Confederacy, the breadbasket of the Confederacy. It might not be the exact term, but so they would stage raids into the interior. And so a Confederate fort marched onto Fort Myers to stop that from happening. I want to say that it was in 1865. So in the last year of the war, they approached the fort. They asked for the fort to surrender. The Union commander says no. They fire some cannons. minimal casualties, but the Union holds the fort. And then that's kind of the Battle of Fort Myers.
So how big was this fort? I mean, how many soldiers do you think were
So there was
stationed there?
that's kind of an interesting. I like that part of history, and they're actually doing a reenactment. So I was just talking with Matt Kay. He's like the social studies coordinator here, and he put me in touch with a lady from the Veterans Association. They're doing a reenactment of the Battle of Fort Myers.
Yeah, I think, do they do that every year?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And so
Centennial, is that where they do it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so they're putting me in touch with them to maybe get involved or be a judge on their essay contest. But yeah, the fort held a number of units, including African American units, or some of the Union regiments that were African American, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty cool that the fort was Union. Now the interesting part in history, and kids love engaging this, is kind of like the linguistic aspect of Lee County. So Lee County comes into existence out of Monroe County, which the headquarters were in Key West, but they name it after the Confederate icon, Robert E. Lee. Mm-hmm. But it was never a Confederate fort during the war. It was a Union fort.
Yeah.
But that kind of linguistic aspect to it, the kids really relate to, because mm-hmm. they're like, yeah, I see how that process, and you connect it with Reconstruction and the Lost Cause, and all of these different ways in which the South continued to try to to work with history and messages. And
was it rare for the Union to mm-hmm. have a fort this far south?
Yes, it was. Now they held New Orleans for a long period of time, which was a southern port. But yeah, they had a few forts, but Fort Myers was one of them, and that was pretty cool to be a part of the Civil War history.
So okay. Going back to, I think, where we were before I derailed us by asking about the battle.
Sorry for going into some of the...
it's okay. It was very interesting stuff. So the project they mm-hmm. put together, what...
So they had
creating something.
Yeah, they worked in small groups, and it was a way to honor the battle, but keeping in mind kind of the history of Fort Myers as well, and some of the issues that we were facing at the time, whether it was race relations or crime or things like that, and in some way to bring the community together, like through the history. And so we had proposals in all of our classes, and then we voted on the ones that we wanted to go to City Hall. And they voted on a few of them, and they voted on, I think, 2 or 3 of them that were presented. The one that the commission really liked, it was like a gold statue of a cow, to hit really like the cattle history of Fort Myers in the Civil War, kind of like that cow cavalry, which connects with the Confederate. I think that's what the Confederates were actually, their group was called.
So how long ago was this? They went before?
It's about 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. So will we ever see this statue?
Right now, no. Okay. Right now, no. But we will. We will continue to think of creative ways to honor the history of Fort Myers for sure.
So I read that you like to rap
mm-hmm.
and interpretive dance
and
recite poetry with your students.
I think just getting them to that uncomfortable stage of learning, like the kids, when you tell them that you introduce the assignment and they're all like, no, or they all come, like some will come up to you and they're like, do I have to do this? And yeah, you've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to get chaotic, and you've got to get messy with learning. That's how it sticks, and that's how you make it yours, right? Because if I simply tell you something, transmit knowledge from me to you, it means nothing. Right, but if you transform it, like if I give you something and you transform it and make it your own, that's power, and that's what we do with those, the raps or like the interpretive dance. The interpretive dances.
So what do you rap about? What do you dance to?
Well, I was a child of the '90s, so like gangster rap was pretty big, and battle raps. 8 Mile, Eminem was pretty big. So yeah, we just did a battle rap between Otto von Bismarck in international history and Kaiser Wilhelm, who took over power from Bismarck.
That's World War I, right?
Leading up to World War I. So like they had different approaches to foreign policy, and the kids really got into it. There was a few mic drops, and we teach the kids and model to the kids how you applaud like a great line, rap line in a battle rap, with the oh no, that sort of thing. And we had winners from the classes go off against each other, and it's tough because Bismarck has the better historic legacy, so they always had a little maybe a step up on Kaiser Wilhelm, but we had some good rappers this year.
Easier to rhyme with Bismarck too, I think.
Yeah, Bismarck. Well, I mean, rhyme it. You can make anything rhyme. It's just how you pronounce it, right? Like
True.
orange doesn't really sound
Yeah.
like you can rhyme it with anything, but it's, my
It bothers-
4-inch door hinge,
Yeah.
orange.
Yeah. It bothers me.
I just ripped that
like a
off
pet-
of an Eminem 60
Did you?
Minutes
Okay.
interview. Yeah.
It bothers me when people try to rhyme like words that end with the sound N. Or no. It bothers me when people try to rhyme words that end with ain with the word again.
Oh.
You see that a lot?
No.
No? I mean, hear it a lot?
Maybe
I
sometimes.
hear it all the time in song. Not all the time, but
No, the mumble-
occasionally it's like,
The mumble rap's kind of big right now.
because people don't pronounce it again. Anyway, I digress.
I digress.
Can you remember any of the
The exact lines?
like some funny lines from these raps?
There was a really good one about Kaiser Wilhelm's foreign policy. Your foreign policy is it was like your foreign policy is crunchy peanut butter or something like that. It was something silly, but everybody was like, no, nobody likes crunchy peanut butter, which nobody liked Kaiser Wilhelm's policy. And he might have mentioned the lapse in the reinsurance treaty with Russia, and then he was like, your judgment on the reinsurance treaty was crunchy peanut butter or something like that. I don't know. It was cute.
Yeah.
It got a lot of applause.
I prefer crunchy peanut butter.
Really?
Yeah.
It tears the bread up.
Yeah. You gotta buy the good bread though.
Really? Mm-hmm. I never knew that. As a kid, I immediately stopped crunchy peanut butter when I saw how much it destroyed the bread. And the bread, I thought of the bread was kind of the community. And as a teacher, you care a lot about the community. You're
probably just spreading it too hard, roughly. And be gentle.
You think that was too aggressive?
Yeah,
perhaps.
Okay, so I also saw you like to have your students engage in. Actually, let's get to that in a second. I actually skipped over something I wanted to ask you. So your North Fort Myers High School is a Cambridge program school,
certificate school.
So when we had Jim Kroll on, which you were talking about, he talked about how at Mariner Middle they're an IB school, and he talked about what the IB program is all about. So how would you describe the Cambridge program for anybody out there who isn't familiar with it?
It's a competitive college certificate program where students are enrolled in ACE Cambridge classes, and then at the end of the year, they take a written exam in hopes of earning college credit and getting one more class towards their diploma. Now they get that ACE diploma. It's very similar to the IB diploma in terms of what it can do in terms of scholarships and college credit and GPA and those sorts of things. Yeah. So it's a great academic program that draws a lot of interested kids in college level courses.
Are there any rapping or interpretive dancing questions on the Cambridge test?
There's not.
Okay.
There's not. But if there is a question like, to what extent was Kaiser Wilhelm's foreign policy a success, the kids automatically are
Circle C for peanut butter.
Got this.
Yeah.
Crunchy.
Okay. Yeah. Because sounds pretty similar to the IB program.
Yeah. The programs are
similar enough.
They're unique.
We went to Fort Myers. I was in IB. So I didn't know I just recently have been learning about the Cambridge program. So another thing, you like to have your students engage in Socratic seminars.
Yeah.
What are those?
So I love to hear them talk, so we give them a prompt, we give them like the outline of how the discussion's going to work. We call after the research period, and we go over models of like how to come up with a position with evidence and analysis. But once we get past that stage, just calling them up to the inner circle and saying, okay, to what extent was Abraham Lincoln, infringing upon civil liberties during the Civil War? And in hearing their voice, I think that to me is like learning, like hearing them talk. If they can talk, they can write, and if they can talk and write, then they're a powerful student. That's a cool combination. So I love hearing them talk about history, and I especially like getting them to sharpen their edge a little bit, especially with their friends, about where they stand on things. So circling back to what makes history cool, it's the debate, it's the conversation. It's the way that you look at different things that you always thought were chiseled in stone or presented to you like A causes B. Now we mess that up, and we just we get a whole bunch of conversation going about history.
So do they like So they go to the front of the class.
Yeah,
and they present an idea, and then
we'll circle it up. So we'll have like a huge outer circle, inner circle. We'll call kids in, and then we actually experimented the past 2 years with like live tweeting from the outer circle, comments made in the inner circle, and that's a great way because kids, they connect on the social media. They come up with great GIFs. I think it is.
I prefer GIFs, but I've heard
GIFs. Yeah, GIFs. You're right. Right.
Well, I read somewhere that the guy who invented it says it's pronounced GIF, but that
Really?
reminds me of peanut butter, so
Crunchy.
I prefer GIF.
I gotcha. No, so they live tweeted it. It's awesome. Like that talk about a layered connection. So they're actually engaged with what the inner circle is saying. I can follow the hashtag. I don't have to follow them. I just follow the hashtag. Like we did one on the Meiji Restoration in Japan, and so I just followed that hashtag. And their comments on it were totally in sync. And you could see them like complimenting each other and saying, "Well, I disagree, but I understand your facts there," which is really cool. So after hearing about,
they're saying that on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so after hearing 5 to 7 in the inner circle of actual audible conversation, then we'll go to the outer circle and say, okay, well, what do you think was the strongest point that was made and why? What do you think of this piece of evidence? Did you consider this? So continuing to question them and getting to those different, like levels of, of depth. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is that one of their?
They like
enjoy
it.
That?
They know that's me. Yeah. So we introduced that pretty early on.
How often do you do that?
I would say once every 2 to 3 weeks for sure, in some fashion. Now we may mix it up. We might, instead of doing a Socratic seminar, we might do an expert panel. So we call up 4 of them, and since they've studied it, they're like the experts on it. We'll give them like little name tags, like they're this historian from Idaho, or they're this person from Harvard or whatever, and they're like, okay, they think it's cheesy, but I do have a few name tags that I can just easily put on them, and then they become the experts on the subject. So please, after your stay at the Hyatt Regency, tell me about this in history, and so they kind of get into it a little bit.
You have the class pepper the panel with questions.
Yeah, pepper the panel. Yeah. Like they're news reporters, or that they're excited to be at the conference with all of these great historians. Yeah. Oh, and we'll even put like backdrops behind them. So sometimes they're having a conversation at Starbucks or Panera, and I put that up, and the kids, they get into it.
That sounds like a fun way to learn history.
I'm hoping that if I put at least 150% of like my energy into it, I'll at least get maybe 30 to 35% of theirs.
There you go.
That's good. That's a good goal.
How long have you been with the school district?
12 years.
Have you always been at North Fort Myers High?
Always. I have always been at North. So my mom taught there for a long time, and she just retired. So I was there with my mom.
I have that. Yeah, I have. So she was there while you were there.
She was.
What was that like?
That was it was fantastic. North's a big school. She taught drama, musical theater. I was in the history, but just to stop in and say hi was always nice for me. Yeah.
Do the other teachers like give you noogies for, because your mom worked?
Well, yeah, I did get put in a locker like the first year, and that was kind of tough. I mean, I'm small, but I was able to get out. Luckily, the assistant principal was able to unlock me. No, I'm just joking. No, it was a lot of fun having her there, and I think the staff liked it. One thing that you want for your staff is collegiality and support and family, and the more it feels like a family, I think the more positive and more fun. And of course, there's dysfunction, and my mom and I, we could butt heads every now and then, but it was great having her there.
Close with her?
Still
close with your family. You have so do you have a lot of family around here?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. So, my dad and my mom, and then I have, step parents that are here, and my wife's family, and then we have 2 kids, and so they're very involved in, seeing them, and it's nice to have family around for sure.
Yeah. Thanksgiving is just a few days away.
Coming up.
Yeah, early this year. Up. Do you have what's your big plans for Thanksgiving?
So being like a big history family, we all take on like roles from the first Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yeah, and we research them, and then we each have kind of like a role to play at Thanksgiving. This year I'll be Squanto, so I'm excited about that, kind of from the bottom up, Howard Zinn style. So I'm excited. I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Tell me about what's Squanto again?
I think he was in Thanksgiving.
Oh.
I think he was like
I've heard of Tonto.
I think he was a translator for the first Pilgrims.
I can't remember it that well.
Did you study history?
I was a straight A. I was a straight A student.
I mean, I know in IB it's like college level.
Yeah,
I'm a little. I wasn't in IB.
I need to read more. what was Thanksgiving like? Sorry, going back to, so you guys role play. What does that mean? What will you be doing?
I was joking about that. We just eat dinner. I thought it would be cool.
I thought you were
I thought it would be
serious.
cool as a history like teacher to role play Thanksgiving, and somebody got to be like one of the top pilgrims, and we had the Mayflower constructed, and that would be like the hardship of the winter, and people are kind of lying on the ground, not they're starving, and then stealing food stores from the local tribes, and then that sort of thing. I thought that would be cool, but maybe just
You
to
should
me.
do that.
Yeah.
How you have 2 kids? How old are your kids?
5 and 3. So my son actually just started kindergarten at Tanglewood.
Oh, cool.
Which, big shout out to Tanglewood. If you haven't gone to an elementary school in the Lee County School District, it is the most amazing place on the face of the planet. There's no place where, if you walk into any Lee County school, elementary school, kindergarten level, they absolutely love their teacher and their school, and everything's so positive. It's like, oh, I love how you walk in the hall, or like, you did such a great job picking up this mess. Or I got a chance to go into Tanglewood to visit with my son and his teacher, Miss Hagemeyer. You rock. And it was just fantastic. That whole, I'm imagining it's got to be just elementary school in general. Maybe it's all schools, because my school is great too. But yeah, the elementary school that he's at is just fantastic.
What was did you or your wife drop him off on his first day of kindergarten?
My wife did the first drop off. So I teach high school. It starts at 7:05.
Oh, yeah,
we get there pretty early, and so my wife got to do the first drop off. I just got pictures. Yeah, I was starting my first day at school too, but not nearly as important.
It was like your 12th first day, right?
That's true, but I take a picture every year.
Do you?
Yeah, and I hold up like a number on my hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And with a big smile too.
Cool. So going back to what you're doing at North Fort Myers High, any other, you mentioned the Civil War project with the Battle of Fort Myers and all that. Any other cool projects?
How many people you think are listening to the podcast right now at this moment? You think we've got at least 10 or 20,000?
Give or take.
Okay, because things are about to get real.
Okay.
This is the mark right here.
Okay.
All right, so I'm working on my doctorate. Okay, you still have to call 911 or whatever. But in terms of the research, I've been researching alternative student assignment plans, student enrollment plans that include census tract data related to diversity in hopes of increasing diversity as we move away from choice models and more to geographic models. So as districts like Lee County go to less choice, right, closer schools, we can include census tract data to ensure that diversity is still maintained, socioeconomic and racial. And with a history like Fort Myers has, it's so important. And the cool thing is the district has been really receptive and given me access to all the data that I need, and it's really been a cool project to work on. And the students even get into it. I have these big maps up in my room, and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And some of them help populate census tract data, sheets and stuff like that.
I was gonna say, so this isn't something you're doing with your students. This is something you're collaborating or working with the district with.
Yeah.
So did somebody with the district come to you and ask for your help on this? Or?
No. So I knew that they had some meetings, and I wanted to get the research in there, and they were like, "Yeah, come." And so I came and presented, and that was like about 1.5, 2 years ago. And so they still include me, and they've included my research and considerations, and it was neat to see how that process all played out. So hopefully at the end of the dissertation, we've decided whether or not this is a reliable and valid way that we can that we can maintain diversity, especially at the elementary level. So we're going to take a look at trying to do it with elementary schools.
So what kind of research have you done, and how are you going to implement it?
So the idea is that so the county breaks down into 160 plus census tracts, and so each little neighborhood you code based on certain criteria, whether it's median income or owner occupancy. We've come up with 4 that we want to use. And then you cluster certain census tracts based on their coded score around schools. And it's based on the Jefferson County model in Kentucky, and that has been very successful and studied as being very successful as being a voluntary integration or desegregation plan. And after a Supreme Court decision, parents involved in 2007, you have to be a bit creative with how you assign students based on certain criteria. So I've collected all the data for every census tract, and I've coded them on 9 levels, and hoping now to strategically cluster certain schools around certain census tracts, or at least create satellite census tracts where you have access to certain schools if you live in certain tracts.
Okay, so this will help. So I mean, we have school choice here, and you said earlier moving away from or more away from that. I mean, we still
maybe not. Yeah, we still have choice, and it's still very successful, and it's still very popular. But like, let's say if we were to, if there was an initiative to reduce transportation costs, right, by limiting the number of choices and going more to local geo schools, this would be one thing that they would want to consider.
Okay, but we're not doing that yet. Or,
no,
okay,
no,
right.
it's not. This is a long-term plan, but the data is real and actionable, so they can, the district can engage with it, and they've been really receptive and supportive.
Why is this important? What made you want to get involved with this?
Well, it goes back to my master's thesis in studying how important integration was. Right, reading over those plaintiffs in the Blaylock case and the history of Fort Myers, and we have a great community, but I think elementary schools and school in general present a great opportunity for us not to perpetuate, residential segregation or occupational segregation or, things like that. So I want to try to break that cycle of social closure in Fort Myers through increasing diversity at the school level.
Cool.
Maybe we could put some like music in the background, like after that, like doom, yeah. I don't know. Or is that crunchy?
After just that, crunchy.
Yeah. Peanut butter.
It's the topic of the podcast, peanut butter and crunchy. Okay. You also told me earlier that you collect comic books.
I do. Yeah, that's one of my hobbies, collecting comic books.
How many would you say you have?
I've got a few hundred.
Few hundred?
Yeah, I got a few hundred. It's also a great way to teach history.
Really?
Yeah, we've woven comics into lessons.
How so?
Alternative history stuff. Days of Future Past, one of the most rare comic books, X-Men, 1981. It's got 2 issues, and it's this dystopian future in which they send back superheroes to change that from happening. And so we do kind of the same thing. We send superheroes back into the past to change the future from happening. So we did a Black Panther when Black Panther was really big, like last year or 2 years ago, for the Scramble for Africa. He went back to protect those African states, since Wakanda is basically whether it's Ethiopia or like this fictional like Congo or whatever. But Black Panther had a lot of connections and ties, so he was able to alter history to prevent the European powers from taking over, kind of flipping history through sending back superheroes.
And you integrated that into the lesson.
Yeah.
How? In a lecture format, or how do you do that?
No, so we would introduce the kids to the Black Panther kind of background story, and then we would say, well, we've covered all of this in terms of the British in South Africa and the French in French West Africa and the Belgians in the Congo, right? We've studied all of these different case studies of empire. You're going to stop that history from actually happening. So you research the real history of imperialism, you find your entry point, and then you change that history. So they got to know both the real, and then they get creative with the projected history, revised history.
So then they try to explain how, if they were able to intervene, how it would be different.
Yeah, they not only do that, but they'll present to the class a comic book cover design, and they do a really good job. The kids with the digital stuff, they bring in like the Black Panther with the flag of Mozambique, and it's they've even created like their own superheroes related to the countries that they were saving or that they were helping. So that was pretty cool.
How old were you when you started collecting comic books?
Oh, I collected comic book cards when I was real young. So I had great parents. I had an amazing dad, an amazing mom, and step parents. But they had a deal with me that if they cursed, if I heard them curse when I was a kid, that was a strike. And then after 3 strikes, I got a pack of baseball cards. And so needless to say, I ran through all baseball, football, basketball card collection, and then into the comic book card collection.
Wow. So your parents had pretty bad
I
potty
think it
mouths.
was a different generation, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is
Did I mention that they were amazing?
Yes, you did.
They're very productive,
I'm sure.
and contributive members to society.
What? So you said you told me earlier you mostly Marvel comics.
Yeah,
Who's your?
Marvel.
Do you have a favorite superhero from the Marvel?
Black Panther and Captain America, which
Yeah.
rest in peace, Stan Lee just passed away at 95.
Yeah, I couldn't. Well, I mean, I could believe it in 95, but
Yeah.
that was. That was sad. He's a really cool guy.
It's like Thanos kind of snapped his finger right there.
Spoiler. So was it? Has it always been Captain America, Black Panther, or with the kind of recent wave of Black Panther
I have to
love?
admit that I was a big Silver Surfer fan when I was a kid.
Oh.
I don't know. I think
Kind of look like him.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What is
It's
my
the glasses.
hair?
The
Oh,
glasses.
it's the glasses. Okay.
Yeah. What? So you don't like Silver Surfer anymore?
No, I don't like Silver Surfer anymore.
Well, I mean, it's because he hasn't been in any of the newer movies.
They really haven't focused on Silver.
What's your favorite Marvel movie?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
You said what's your favorite Marvel movie?
I could be a prisoner of the moment, but I loved Infinity War.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Whew, yeah, I liked Captain America: Winter Soldier is really
I'm not. See, Captain America is like one of my least favorite.
really.
Yeah, I love Iron Man. And Thor is.
Thor's just so powerful.
Yeah, he's grown on me. I didn't love the first couple movies, but
Thor's like who you want to be as a teacher in the classroom.
Yeah.
You just come in, you got the hammer, which is your lesson, and then it's just like, vroom, and everybody's just like, whoa, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
You see how I tied it back
Yeah,
in with the teaching.
That's what you're here for, to rein me in from all these different tangents I'm trying to go on. So what's your favorite part about being a teacher, being in the classroom with the students, seeing them learn? I mean, what is it? Maybe I just answered the question for you. So what's your favorite
it's the
part?
Opportunity. It's the everyday the opportunity to. I mean, you could say make a difference, but every day I have the opportunity to connect with a kid in an academic way, to encourage them to see the potential that I see in them, which is everything. I teach 10th and 11th grade. A lot of doors open, but they might not see it. In high school, everything's it's so loud, so noisy for the kids. I'm able to say, listen, you're a really great writer. We have to work on this. Or I have a college that I really think that you would be awesome for, or that would be really great for you. So it's that opportunity to connect. Whenever I'm struggling with classroom management, maybe I have, a class that's a little talkative. I think about how well do I know these kids? How well do I, in just talking to them. It's not a they should know better type of thing. It's that I should know them better type of thing. So getting to know them, that having that connection and being able to say like, hey, listen, you're going to do something great. We just got to figure out what that is.
Cool. Anything in the near future? Anything new you're working on, trying to implement in the classroom that you're excited about?
That's a good question. We've tried out a few different things this year. Trying to think.
Where are you?
I want to do. Actually, I just remembered Powtoons. It was a presentation platform, which is kind of like, it's not like a slide type of thing. It's more like a scene where they can layer different characters. So we did a presentation on World War I where they each had selected topics for Powtoons, and they could animate them and like put voiceovers in it. But I like to get them kind of messing around with more challenging, I guess, technology platforms. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I like the technology aspect.
Do you use a lot of technology in the classroom?
Yeah, we tried to. So in terms of group presentations, we've done this year a Venngage infographic presenter. We've done Prezi, which is an alternative to like PowerPoint or Google Slides. And we've now just done Powtoons, which is like a kind of like an animated cartoon presentation format. So yeah, just trying to get them engaged with that stuff because you hear that when they go into when they go into college and when they go into the workforce, how vital certain technologies will be in certain work areas. So,
is it vital to you kind of bring in technology to to engage students because they're students today have grown up with it and don't know anything and they're surrounded by technology all the time?
Yeah,
you think they wouldn't be as engaged if there wasn't technology in the classroom as well? Or
it's hard to say.
Sure.
It's hard to say, but I do think the direction that we're moving in is getting them exposed and getting them engaged with technology so as to best be ready for that as they develop. But there's still teachers, I think, that do a great job like sans technology, like no technology. Like it's a throwback kind of like dirt class, like dirt curriculum. You get out there, you learn about science by picking up, you're engaging with the environment. I think the place-based learning is amazing too. But yeah, with history, I'd like to try to bring in technology. I think the kids could do great anywhere, right? It's just how it's presented, how it's formatted, how it's guidelined, and then how it's instructed, right? So students can dominate anything. Right, any student at any school, as long as it's properly rolled out, as long as it's properly scaffolded, they can rock anything.
So you're U.S. history buff. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
I'm ready. Any question?
What do you think is the
Abraham Lincoln, best
most
president.
significant event in U.S. history?
Really?
Yeah.
The most significant event.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have so we'll lay out a few options. Oh, you're gonna need years.
After the colonies became the United States. So
okay,
let's say post declaration.
So you're putting George Washington to bed. You're saying Thomas Jefferson
1777
onward.
What do you think is the most significant event?
Man, I mean, Civil War is huge, right? So if you had to pick an event in the Civil War, not to be overdone.
You can say Civil War just.
Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, you could
Wow.
I would have accepted that as an answer.
I appreciate that. Do you know the years of the Civil War?
Wait, 1860 to 1864?
1860.
61 to 65?
There we go.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this guy is good. I like it. Yeah, so I would say Civil War. I would say Spanish-American War. I would say
Spanish-American War. Really? I feel like a lot of people wouldn't say that.
I know I
don't know why.
And so I'm thinking globally. I'm thinking globally with the Spanish-American War.
Okay.
Just as a global empire, moving beyond continental boundaries, because they gain colonies and they decide to be this powerful force in Latin America and beyond, which sets the stage for them entering World War I. But yeah, I mean, World War II is huge from a domestic standpoint. Like I'm really big on the 64 civil rights and the 65 voting rights, because that's America recognizing from a legislative standpoint that it wasn't living up to its dream about equality and freedom.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool. Specific event. I want to try to find something like really like butterfly-esque for you. Like this butterfly flaps its wings, and then me and you are here talking in this podcast. Let me try to think.
Well, you said so Lincoln. Going back to Civil War. Lincoln's your favorite president?
Yeah, Lincoln and Lyndon Baines Johnson, minus Vietnam. If you could take Vietnam away from LBJ, then I'd be really happy. Not from a personality standpoint, but we get a lot legislatively, which I know is carrying on the legacy of Kennedy. But I do find that fascinating. I wouldn't say that I would be like best friends. Like if you had that hypothetical, well, who would you go to dinner with in history or whatever?
Taft.
Really? Yeah. William Howard Taft. He's my least favorite progressive president.
I just threw a name out of that.
Yeah, he basically just, his campaign slogan was, Roosevelt said, vote for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Theodore Roosevelt. I'm not trying to bash on the Taft legacy. I mean, he's an American president. He's also the only president.
We would never want to do that.
I would never do that. I would never, ever do that. But he's also one of the only he is the only president to be, I believe, Chief Justice on the Supreme Court and president.
Oh, wow.
And the rumor that he got stuck in the bathtub, not true. He just had a special designed bathtub built so he wouldn't get stuck. He was proactive about the bathtub.
I don't know that story.
Yeah, there's always like that he was a very heavy president and that he got stuck in the bathtub. So I think some students confuse it with like Elvis dying in the bathtub or something.
Kind of where my mind went.
But no, he just had him specifically designed on the naval vessel, and I think maybe in the White House too.
Interesting. Supreme Court justice. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know he was. What years was he president?
So he is president from 08 to 12. Yeah, so Theodore Roosevelt's 1901 to 1908, and then I believe Taft is 08 to 12, and then Wilson from 12 to 19 or 12 to 20. It just depends on whether you're like the actual election.
I just felt like putting you on the spot.
I appreciate that.
Going back to Thanksgiving really quick,
Do you have a place for Thanksgiving? Because we have one open spot in our place.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm booked solid, but
Really?
I appreciate that.
Okay, because I thought maybe you were bringing it up like you wanted to get in on the fun. In one
No,
family,
I grew up here, so I mean, I've
Your
got
family.
family here.
Okay.
And my fiance has family here too, so we're doing split the day, first half of the
Really,
day
you're doing
with
half
them.
and half.
Yeah,
I like that. I did that as a kid.
I'm looking forward to it. Do like dinner at one place and dessert at the other.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the dessert family's never going to feel kind of slighted that you.
I hope not. We may like next year do it the other way around. Just
And
to
you tell them
even
that.
it out.
Okay, just hey.
They're aware.
They're aware. You communicate very well. That's a very important part of teaching too. Is communicating to these kids. Telling them how great they are.
Always bringing it back to teaching. I'm going to bring it away from teaching real quick. What's your favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Side dish.
Yeah.
Gravy doesn't count as a side dish, right?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess that's out. I like stuffing.
Okay.
Yeah, stuffing, but with gravy.
Gravy.
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
I think that's mine too. So.
Now, you're not like a pearled onion type of guy?
I'm not a what now?
A pearled onion? It was a...
pearled onion. For some reason, I heard prolungian. No, I don't like pearl onions.
What about cranberries out of the can?
I do like cranberries. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially on the leftover sandwich.
You make the sandwich.
Yeah.
What,
You
now,
put the
what's your,
cranberry on the sandwich.
what's your favorite type of pie?
See, I'm not a big pie guy, but
Now you're going to this second half.
Dutch apple probably.
Okay. All right.
You?
Pumpkin.
Yeah, although I'm getting more into pumpkin in my later years than
It is kind of a maturity thing.
it is.
Once I became a mature adult, I really liked
I
pumpkin
never
pie.
liked sweet potatoes either when I was young, but now I love them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I feel like I'm really getting
I
to
was
know
a
you.
really bad vegetable eater
Okay.
when I was a kid. My parents, it was a nightmare every night when there was anything green on the plate.
Yeah.
I had to plug my nose and I would like shake my head.
Did they ever tell you like, hey, if you don't eat this, you're not going to remember the year of the Civil Rights Act? And then you were like, no, I don't want to eat it. And then now you're realizing you could have been 1 year off.
No, yeah, never said that, but I do wish I'd eaten more carrots because my eyes are perfect. They'll never go bad. Then I went to college, couldn't read the screen in the big lecture halls from the back row. So I had to get glasses. So yeah.
That is tough.
Anyway,
I feel for it. I'm empathizing with you right now.
I appreciate it. Anything else important that we should discuss?
Well, I think that the not to take it into the wider community in politics, but I think that was really cool about the halfpenny sales tax. I think I think as a teacher and as a someone that feels connected with a community of teachers, we felt really supported by the Lee County voter, by our community, and having that just said, hey, you're doing a good job, keep doing a good job, we support you. And so I thought that was really cool.
I know there's like a list for every single school in the district of improvements that will come their way. Have you looked at the North Fort Myers list? Do you know what you guys are?
There's a lot of maintenance stuff, HVAC stuff, auditorium. So like the building, and
How do you know how old the building North Fort Myers is?
Actually, that's a good question. They did get the newer building. My mom actually taught there when it was the old building before the new construction, but I want to say 1980s. No, 90.
See,
1990.
If you had eaten more vegetables, you would have known that.
That is true. I ran out of knowledge there. But no, I think that just the operational side and like having a safe place where kids can learn and the security and fixing things that really needed to be fixed. It's a long-term investment.
It was a close vote too, 52 to 48.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
doesn't even need a recount. That's nice. Yeah, 52. I'll take that.
Yeah, 52%.
Not 52 votes.
Yeah, it wasn't like 100 people total voted. But anyway, thank you for everybody who did. Yeah, I
feel like I got a few more things.
Okay, lay them on me.
So let's say I walk into a classroom.
Yeah.
Right. You're in that upper echelon of student, right? So like I'm your teacher at Fort Myers, IB.
Okay.
What is going to be your biggest strength as a student? What's going to be your biggest weakness? And I want to tell you kind of how I would approach each.
Gosh, it's been a while since I've thought about this.
Okay,
so you're personally, what would
you're a history student, and you come in. What's your biggest strength as a history student? Is it reading ability? Is it preparation? Is it organization? Is it?
It wouldn't be. Okay, I've never been that organized, so it wouldn't be organization. Okay. I'm probably a pretty strong reader and writer. I would think.
Well, I think.
History was also one of my favorite subjects.
Did you have Mr. Galt?
No, Brooks.
Oh, Brooks. Okay.
History of the Americas.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Great teacher. So I think maybe my strength as a history student would just be that I have an inherent interest in history.
Yeah.
So I kind of have that extra motivation to learn.
Yeah, I think I would try to connect with that. Just foster that love of history. And a lot of kids that have that love early on, they've had great teachers, with history, but getting them to see like outside of high school what history can do and what history can bring to them, not just becoming a history teacher, but maybe working for the State Department, or maybe becoming an ambassador, or working in government, or even Library of Congress, or all of these cool archival things, or leading kids on tours of certain things. I think for you, I would want you to become kind of like the cool maybe curator of the Battle of Fort Myers Museum, which doesn't exist, but with you and your enthusiasm, we can make that a possibility.
Wow.
Yeah.
If I ever leave the school district, I can be the curator for the Battle of Fort Myers Museum.
Well, that'll be the next actual like referendum on the ballot is to fund through the school district a museum of the Battle of Fort Myers.
Oh, you're working on that?
Not yet.
Oh,
no,
okay.
It's really only a support of one.
Well, that would be cool.
I could sell my comics.
Yeah.
I could do that.
How much do you think they're worth?
Probably about $15.30. I've done a rough
for
estimate.
all of them total?
All of them together,
okay.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up? In Fort Myers or?
Yeah, in Fort Myers.
Okay.
So my mom and my dad divorced, but they were great parents and got along.
Uh-huh.
And so my mom lived in North Fort Myers. My dad lived in Fort Myers, and I traveled back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you ever lived anywhere else other than Gainesville?
Yeah, just Gainesville for college.
Cool.
And my wife grew up in Connecticut, and she always talks about how amazing Connecticut is, especially in the fall. But then her parents always remind her about how cold it is in the winter. Yeah. But yeah, we've gone up to Connecticut, and that's lovely, and been to North Carolina.
So did you ever want to live anywhere else, or you kind of knew that you grew up here, you loved it, and you didn't want to leave? Because I love this.
I know.
I love this area.
I know it's going to sound kind of over the top, but I felt like Fort Myers gave me a lot, and I really enjoyed it. That I wanted to kind of give back to Fort Myers in some way. Yeah, small or big.
Nice. Well, I'm sure you're making a big difference in a lot of kids' lives with your rapping and your crunchy peanut butter jokes.
Foreign policies like peanut butter, crunchy.
All right. Anything else you wanted to get in?
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, and thank you for talking. And I think that just getting connected with teachers and getting more teachers out to the public is great. Go visit your schools. Set up a time to go see them. They're awesome. The kids are fantastic, and the teachers are just they're on fire. So that's pretty cool.
All right. Adam Molloy, U.S. history teacher, North Fort Myers High School. Thanks for joining us again, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.